Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with the next update for my Panda palette. I'm very excited to share with you my progress as always, but before I jump into that, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. But let's just jump into the video. So I do have my palette right here, and I'm just going to start by showing you the picture of where I was last month, as I always do. And as you can see, I already had quite a lot of progress in this palette. I had pan on every shade apart from one, and this right here is where I am with the palette today. So hopefully you can see there that I do have some progress. I haven't hit pan in the last shade, which is this one here, but I do have some really good pan expansions, at least I think. I haven't watched the picture back in a little bit now, but I do think that I have quite a bit of pan expansion in a couple of shades. So I'm just going to go through every shade in order and talk about my usage and yeah, kind of where I am with all of the eyeshadows. So we're gonna start with the first shade, which is Venus. This is the kind of highlighting shade in the palette. This shade I have used 23 times in the past month, which is kind of on par with what I usually use it. I haven't used it too much in the last kind of couple of last week or so, I would say, because one of the ways I used to use this a lot is as a face highlighter, but now I am panning a different face highlighter, and I'm also using a different inner corner highlight a lot of the time as well, just to kind of play around a little bit and get some use out of other things in my collection. But I'm not worried about finishing this. I definitely think this will be done because I already have a lot of progress, and I do think the pan also expanded a little bit in this shadow, and I'm currently trying to work myself downwards in the pan and kind of try to like get it work down more evenly so I can eventually repress it. But there's where I am with Venus. The next shade is Foxy, which, as you know if you've been following along this project, is a shade that I haven't really been focusing on a lot at all before, but I did actually use this shade quite a lot this past month. I reached for it 21 times, which is definitely the most I've reached for this. I think it's probably like basically the same amount as I've reached for it overall throughout this whole project before, so definitely quite a lot more usage. And the reason why I've been using this a bit more now is because it's getting into summer. I had a little bit of tan, although it's gone now, and I just feel like this shade works better for me when I do have a little bit of a tan or just with kind of like a warmer toned looks. So yeah, I did use this 21 times, and I think I will kind of continue using this quite a lot. And I'm not sure if I will be able to hit pan next month, but maybe. The dip right now is, I mean, you can probably see it, especially if I do this in the palette. I think you can kind of see the dip in that shadow, but yeah, not super close to pan yet, but yeah, if I continue working on it, I might have pan on this next month. Then we have the second kind of light shade, which is Walk of Shame, which obviously I already have a lot of progress on, but as you can hopefully see in the picture, I did kind of expand the pan quite a lot as well, and I did use this another 21 times as well. So I did use Foxy and Walk of Shame basically evenly throughout the month, and it all kind of depended on what look I did. If I did a cool tone look, I reached for Walk of Shame, and if I did a warm toned look, I reached for Foxy. And for example, today I am wearing Walk of Shame. And also, just FYI, if you haven't been following this project along before, I don't really use these shades to set my eyelid because I don't set my eyelid after I prime. I used to use these shades to kind of blend out my brow bone or kind of tone things down in this area here if I brought my crease color too far in. So that's kind of the only thing I use these shades for, so they're not going as fast as if I would set my eyeshadow base with them. But again, I don't think there will be any problems finishing these up because they are shades that I reach for almost every single day. Next up we have the shade Naked 2, which is the kind of taupey shade in the palette, and I mainly use this as an eyebrow powder. I haven't used this at all, I think, in the past month as an eyeshadow because I reach for it a little bit as an eyeshadow back in winter, but now when we're in summer I don't really reach for these really super cool tone looks anymore. But maybe when we do hit kind of autumn or end of autumn, beginning of winter again, I might reach for this shade again as a crease shade. But I did reach for this 28 times in the past month, which is still really good, but like I said, that progress comes from it as a brow powder. And I'm hoping you can see that I did expand the pan in this. I am currently trying to work myself down this way just to kind of even it out again. And I was thinking about it this morning, but I think that I might still be able to finish this up. I do have quite a lot of usage in this. On all of that looks like there might be a lot of eyeshadow left. It's really thin up here, and this bit down here is still quite thick, but in general it's getting quite thin, so hopefully, fingers crossed, I would be able to finish this by the end of the year. And again, it is basically a shade that I reach for every single day in my brows. Next up we have the shade Faint, which is this shade right here. With this one, I have used it 30 times in the past month, which is quite a high amount of uses, and I do use this again in my brows, but I use a much smaller amount. I basically used to use it in my kind of tail, as well as sometimes to line underneath my brow. Used to kind of get the shape out when I film, for example, but I use Naked 2 to kind of fill in the remaining part of my brows, like this whole bit right here. So I don't use as much of Faint, and you can probably see that in the progress pictures as well. I'm not sure how much the pan expanded this past month. It might not have expanded at all, because I'm trying to kind of work down the sides, because past month the sides were basically like all the way up, and I didn't really have any dips around the pan itself. But I'm hoping you can see now that there is a little bit of movement, but again, there is a lot of product left in this eyeshadow, so I'm not sure this will be one that I can actually finish this year. But in combination with using it in my brows, I also used it as an eyeshadow a couple of times. Not too many, because again, it is more of a cool tone shade, and I rock those more in autumn and winter, like I mentioned. So I only use it maybe like 3 or 4 times as an eyeshadow, and I mainly use this in my outer corner when I use it as an eyeshadow. But yeah, I'm gonna continue working on it, but I doubt that this will be done by the end of the year. Then we have the big kind of disappointment this past month, and that is the shade Crave. I only used Crave 1 time, so you probably won't be able to see any difference in this one here. I just don't really feel like using these really smoky tones right now, and I also rolled in a really kind of deep blackish green in my Pando's eyeshadows that has kind of taken the place of this one when I do reach for Crave as an eyeliner, for example, because they do kind of do a similar thing. So that's also why the progress in Crave hasn't been as good this past month. And again, I don't think I will finish up Crave, but I'm not too worried about it, because Crave is one of the most pigmented blacks that I have in my collection, and I wouldn't mind kind of depotting this or repanning it into a different pan and put it in my magnetic palette when the year comes to an end. So I'm not too worried about this, but obviously I do want to continue working on it. And yeah, that's basically where I am with this palette. So in the past month I didn't really set any goals, because I just wanted to kind of use this as much as possible, and I do think I did pretty well with this palette. And used also because I always forget to mention this in the video, but I am going to talk about the weight a little bit, so I will put up the kind of different picture from last month here. But with this palette, I have currently, from when I started this project, I have used 2.72 grams, which is a decent amount of progress. And I did look at the back of the palette, and each shade is 1.3 grams. So technically I have used up just over 2 shades already, if you look like at gram. So I'm currently at basically 2.1 shadows used up. I don't know if there's actually going to be the advertised weights in this, or if there's going to be more product in each shadow, but I am going to kind of count it as I've used up 2 so far. And again, this also wasn't a palette that was completely new when I rolled it in. I didn't have amazing progress on it, but it wasn't new, so I think that I'm doing quite well. I think maybe overall with my previous use as well, I probably maybe used like 2.5 shadows in here. So with that, I should be able to finish up 5 shades in this palette. But what I'm foreseeing is going to happen is that I will finish up the first 3 shades right here, and then these 3 will possibly be left, or at least these 2 here, and then this one might be finished as well. So I think these 3 won't be a problem. This one I'm gonna fight really hard to finish, and then these 2 will definitely be left, and I think maybe there will be like about half a shadow each of them, or maybe a bit more in the Crave shade. But I hope you understand what I mean, and I'm completely fine with that. I don't mind not using up this whole palette, and at the end of the year I'm going to reevaluate if I want to continue panning it, or if I want to use the pot the shade or declutter them when I get to that point. But that is basically where I am with this palette. When it comes to goals, I don't really know if I want to continue putting goals on this, because it is obviously, as you can see in my numbers, it is a palette that I use basically every single day anyway. So I think I'm just going to do what I did last month and continue saying that I just want to use this as much as possible and continue reaching for it. But like an unofficial goal would be that I want to try to make more of an effort to reach for Crave, because one use is not going to get me anywhere. So I do want to reach for that a little bit more, at least 5 to 10 times, but more if possible. So yeah, that is where I am with this palette, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you're doing Panda palette, please let me know how you're doing down below, and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye guys!